I think it was 2024 that these Yelp reviews surfaced of a person named Yarden Silveria who was detransitioning, and he wrote these kind of scathing reviews from the doctors who performed various types of surgical procedures on him when he was fairly young, over 18, but fairly young. And he his obituary was also found, and it had said that he had died at just 23 years old. And so I started investigating this story. I came across his posts in the detransition subreddit and other types of, his online history when he identified as a trans woman. And it really struck me when I came across his writing where he explained why he believed he was trans. And it was because he said, I literally have a female brain. So this person was also autistic and gay. So when you take someone who's so vulnerable like that, this was when he was 15 years old, is when he began like socially transitioning, and when he came across the trans brain narrative, he was just in such a vulnerable state when he came across these articles claiming that trans people have brains that match their gender identity. Like, he really internalized that. And that was similar to, what I found when I sort of surveyed detransitioners as well. Like, I've asked them, I did sort of like an informal survey on close to 100 detransitioners, and I had asked them, of those who medically transitioned, many of them were young, who had transitioned when they were minors, but it was like 85.7% had said that their doctor or therapist, their healthcare provider, had explained their trans identity to them as in terms of it being a biological or a medical condition that they had no control over and had no ability to change. And I think that framing is very powerful, especially to a young person or especially to a parent who's scared. Like, doctors, we trust doctors. They should know better. They have an authority. There's a power imbalance between patient and doctor. And they've been telling patients something that's completely not true. Like, it's complete pseudoscience. 50% in this sample that I surveyed also said they specifically recalled the trans brain narrative, where their trans identity was explained to them as, you have a male brain in a female body, or a female brain in a male body. Like, that has a lot of weight to it, I think. And I think that it really influences their decision to medically transition. And it's really wrong to do that.
Yeah, I mean, this case of Yarden, is it Silvera or Silvera?
Yarden Silvera, he went through so many name changes. Like, that's why it was difficult to trace him. So he had so many identity issues. It was just like the saddest story.
Yeah, and he was just a teenager when he started learning about transgenderism. So I think he wrote that at 15, he told his mother that he was transgender and that he believed that he had a female brain. And he said, a trans woman, such as myself, was born with a male body, but she has always had her female brain, literally born with a female brain. And I think you're right, because especially for kids, like, so many of these kids have been discovered to be autistic or gay, and maybe struggling with their identities. And all teenagers struggle with their identities. That's the other thing that somehow we've forgotten in the past couple of decades, which is that when I was a teenager, the struggles with your identity had to do with the kinds of clothes that you wore, because transgenderism really wasn't a thing in the 90s. So it was like whether or not you were like a skater or, like preppy or like you were into grunge.
Music, yeah.
Yeah, but now the struggles with identity have become this biological thing and a medical condition that you need puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, surgeries, and this Yarden sadly really did go all the way and had all these horrific complications that he dealt with as a result.
Yeah. I mean, he sought help from over a dozen doctors, and they all turned him away. And what's so tragic too is that I think, he's believed to have taken his own life. And this was like right before, I think, detransitioners were having, were first sort of like coming on the scene and developing a public presence. I think he absolutely would have found a community with them and found hope to keep going, but it was just a time period where he was so alone and in horrible pain because of the complications, the genital complications he was experiencing, and didn't see any hope. Didn't This was like before lawyers had kind of turned their attention towards this issue too. It's so sad. And I mean, that's why I started writing about this issue in the first place 3 years ago when I found the stories of detransitioners, because I understand them in some ways from my own experiences when I was a teenager. I had severe mental health problems, and I was suffering so much that I was searching for an explanation, and psychiatry didn't really provide a satisfying explanation. I was often told like I had a chemical imbalance in my brain, and that really affected my ability to recover. If you believe that you have a biological condition that you have no control over, it's almost like, what's the point? My brain is defective. I'm always going to be this way. But I was always sort of trying on different diagnoses to see what fit. And so I really feel like if gender ideology had been around when I was a teenager 20 years ago, it just wouldn't have taken much convincing, because I had trouble getting along with other girls. I didn't fit feminine ideals. I wore baggy clothes. So it just wouldn't have taken much convincing at all, because had such low self-esteem, and I was just so desperate for an explanation, and for hope. And I think that's what the transgender narrative provides to a lot of teenagers who are struggling. And that's why it's so appealing to people.
Mm-hmm.